The X-Files, my best friend's wedding. To my ex-wife. The moment I realized my best friend was dating my ex-wife, I was elbow deep in nacho cheese at the Super Bowl party I was hosting. Literally. I had somehow managed to knock over the industrial-sized warming tray while reaching for my beer, and as the orange lava flowed across my granite countertop, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was an Instagram post from Olivia, my ex-wife of 14 months, a sun-dappled photo of her kissing someone on a beach at sunset. The ocean sparkled behind them, making it all very romantic and nauseatingly perfect. But it wasn't until I wiped my cheese-covered thumb across the screen that I realized her new boyfriend, the guy she had apparently become Instagram official with, was none other than Marcus. My best friend since freshman year of college. The same Marcus who had held my head over a toilet the night Olivia had asked for a divorce. "Dude, you okay?" "You look like you've seen a ghost," said Trevor, my coworker who'd been helping me host the party. "Worse," I replied, still staring at my phone while nacho cheese congealed around my forearm. "I think I've been double betrayed." That's how I, Nate Wilson, 34-year-old software developer and fantasy football commissioner, found myself in the middle of what my therapist would later call an unusual triangulation of relationship dynamics, but what my mom simply called a goddamn soap opera. Let me back up. Olivia and I had been married for 6 years when she announced, over pad thai, which I can no longer eat without feeling slightly nauseous, that she couldn't do this anymore. This being our marriage, our mortgage, our plans to maybe start a family in the next year or two. She said she loved me but wasn't in love with me, which is the relationship equivalent of "it's not you, it's me," except that it's actually completely about you and how you've somehow become as exciting as spreadsheet software. The divorce was amicable, as these things go. We divided our possessions, sold our craftsman bungalow in Seattle's Fremont neighborhood, and went our separate ways. She got our Peloton and the Le Creuset cookware. I got our dog, Winston, a golden retriever with anxiety issues and a penchant for eating socks. Marcus had been my rock throughout the divorce. He brought me whiskey, took me to Seahawks games, and didn't judge me when I went through what I call my sad man with beard phase, where I stopped shaving and started writing acoustic guitar songs with titles like Empty Side of the Bed and The Alimony Blues, despite the fact that I wasn't actually paying alimony. "You'll get through this," Marcus had assured me. "And someday, you'll find someone who appreciates your weird obsession with historical documentaries and doesn't mind that you sleep with your mouth open." Apparently, that someone was supposed to be anyone but my ex-wife. And Marcus was supposed to follow the unwritten but universally acknowledged bro code, "Thou shalt not date thy best friend's ex-wife." Yet here we were. As my Super Bowl guests cheered and groaned at the game playing on my massive TV, purchased during the divorce as part of what my therapist called retail therapy but what my credit card company called worryingly excessive spending, I retreated to my bathroom to process this betrayal. I texted Marcus, "Dude. Instagram. Explanation needed ASAP." His response came immediately, which told me he'd been waiting for this moment. "I was going to tell you. It just happened. Can we talk?" Just happened? The sunset photo looked pretty deliberate to me. And based on the tan Olivia was sporting, this hadn't been a one-time thing. I typed and deleted several responses ranging from the high road, "I hope you're both happy," to the scorched earth, "I trusted you with my emotional wounds." I finally settled on, "Not today. Hosting Super Bowl. Covered in cheese. We'll call tomorrow." Then I splashed water on my face, rejoined my party, and proceeded to drink enough beer that the Kansas City Chiefs started to look blurry on my 75-inch screen. The next morning, my phone rang at an ungodly hour. The screen said 9:30 a.m., but my hangover said middle of the night. It was Marcus. "Hey," he said when I answered, his voice tentative. "How are you feeling?" "Like I've been hit by a truck filled with Betrayal and Budweiser," I replied, pulling my comforter over my head. Winston, sensing my distress, licked my face sympathetically. His breath smelled like the sock he'd probably consumed while I was passed out. "I know this is weird," Marcus began. "Weird? Finding out your ex-wife and best friend are dating via Instagram is beyond weird. It's like finding out your mom has an OnlyFans account. That's a disturbing comparison. I'm disturbed. I'm disturbed that while you were helping me through my divorce, telling me I'd find someone new, you were thinking, yeah, and I'll find someone new too, your wife. Marcus sighed heavily. It wasn't like that. It just happened. We ran into each other at that coffee shop near her office about 3 months ago. We got talking, and it was nice. Comfortable. Comfortable, I repeated. Like my old t-shirts she used to sleep in? Nate, come on. We didn't plan this. We actually spent the first few weeks just talking about you. Oh, that makes me feel so much better. Remember how Nate snores? So annoying. I mimicked. Actually, it was more like, Nate's a great guy. I feel terrible about hurting him. I sat up, disturbing Winston, who gave me a reproachful look before settling at the foot of the bed. If you both think I'm such a great guy, why are you doing this? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Because sometimes life is messy and feelings don't follow the rules we want them to. Look, can we meet for a beer? This conversation should happen in person. I agreed to meet him that evening, not because I was ready to forgive him, but because I wanted to see his face when I pointed out that he'd violated every friendship principle since the dawn of time. The rest of the day passed in a blur of self-pity and productivity. I cleaned up the nacho disaster in my kitchen. I took Winston for a long walk, during which he managed to find and roll in something that smelled like it had been dead for several weeks. I gave Winston a bath, which he tolerated with the sad resignation of a dog who knows he brought this on himself. By the time I reached Cloudburst Brewing, a hipster craft beer place near Amazon's campus, I had worked myself into a righteous anger that felt almost therapeutic. Marcus was already there, nursing what looked like an IPA with some ridiculous name like Hopocalypse Now or Bitter X Best Friend. He saw me, waved awkwardly, and then seemed to remember that we were in a fight and dropped his hand. I ordered the strongest beer on the menu, a triple IPA that the bartender warned would put hair on my chest and possibly my eyeballs, and joined Marcus at his table. You look good, he said, which was a lie because I knew I looked like I'd been dragged through a hedge of betrayal and hangover backward. Let's skip the small talk, I replied. How long has this been going on, really? Marcus fidgeted with his beer mat. We started talking regularly about 3 months ago. But it didn't become romantic until about 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks, I repeated. So when we went to that Kraken game in January and you were texting the whole time, claiming it was work. He had the decency to look ashamed. Yeah. It was Olivia. And when you couldn't make my New Year's party because you had food poisoning. I was with her family in Portland. He took a long sip of his beer. Her mom always liked me. Her mom always liked me too. I protested. She cried at our wedding. She cried at our Christmas dinner too, Marcus admitted. But I think that might have been the eggnog. I stared at him, the reality of the situation fully hitting me. My best friend and my ex-wife weren't just dating, they were serious. Meeting parents serious. Instagram official serious. I don't know what you want me to say, I finally said. Congratulations. Thanks for stabbing me in the back in such an efficient manner. Marcus leaned forward. I want you to know that we never, ever had anything going on while you were married. Or even right after the divorce. This isn't some secret affair that's been happening for years. Small comfort, I muttered. Why her, Marcus? There are literally millions of women in this country. Why did you have to pick the one I was married to? He looked down at his beer. Because she gets me. And I get her. And we didn't expect it either, but once we started talking. He trailed off, then looked me in the eye. I'm in love with her, Nate. Those words hit me like a physical blow. Not because I was still in love with Olivia, I had processed that grief, mostly, but because my best friend had fallen in love with the person I had failed to make happy. It felt like the universe was playing a cosmic joke at my expense. Does she love you too? I asked, hating how vulnerable the question made me sound. Marcus nodded. She does. I drained my beer, which tasted like someone had liquefied a pine forest and added a hint of betrayal for flavor. I need time. This is a lot. I understand, Marcus said. But I hope we can eventually be okay. You're my best friend, Nate. That hasn't changed for me. I laughed bitterly. Everything has changed. You're dating my ex-wife. That's friend breakup territory in any rulebook. There's no rulebook for this situation, he argued. Oh, there absolutely is. It's called Basic Human Decency. Chapter 1, Don't date your best friend's ex-wife. It's right there after don't kick puppies and before don't use Comic Sans in professional emails. Marcus almost smiled, which made me realize I was falling into our usual pattern of banter even though I was furious with him. Some habits were hard to break. I should go, I said, standing up. Winston needs his anxiety medication, and apparently so do I. As I walked out, I could feel Marcus watching me. I didn't look back. The next few weeks were a study in avoidance. I ignored Marcus's texts. I muted Olivia on all social media platforms. I threw myself into work, coding until my eyes burned and my fingers cramped. I spent evenings with Winston, who proved to be a terrible but enthusiastic chess partner. Then came the email from Olivia, "Can we talk? Coffee tomorrow?" My immediate instinct was to ignore it, just as I'd been ignoring everything related to the Marcus-Olivia situation. But there was a part of me, the part that had spent 6 years waking up next to her, the part that still automatically bought her favorite cereal when grocery shopping before remembering I didn't need to, that wanted closure. I replied, "Fine. The place near your office. 3 p.m. When I arrived at Broadcast Coffee the next day, Olivia was already there, sitting at a table by the window. She looked good, hair shorter than when we were married, wearing a green sweater that brought out her eyes. She looked happy, which was both nice to see and infuriating. "Thanks for meeting me," she said as I sat down with my black coffee, ordered in a futile attempt to match my mood. "Well, I figured we should talk, given that you're dating my best friend." I tried to keep my tone neutral, but a hint of bitterness crept in. Olivia winced. "I know this isn't ideal. Understatement of the century. But I want you to know it wasn't planned. Marcus and I weren't sneaking around behind your back when we were married." "So I've been told," I said. "Multiple times. And yet, somehow, that doesn't make me feel much better about the situation." She sighed, wrapping her hands around her mug. "Do you remember what I said when I asked for the divorce? That you loved me but weren't in love with me. A classic. I meant it, Nate. I do love you. You're kind and funny and smart. But we grew apart. We wanted different things. And Marcus wants the same things you do?" I couldn't keep the skepticism out of my voice. To my surprise, she nodded earnestly. "Yes. We both want to travel before settling down. We both want to live downtown instead of in the suburbs. We both love trying new restaurants instead of cooking at home. All the things I hadn't been interested in. I prefer our cozy home to hotels, cooking to dining out, our nice quiet neighborhood to the noise of downtown." I had thought these were compromises we were both making, but apparently they had been deal breakers for her. "So Marcus's spontaneous adventure Olivia's perfect match," I said. "While I was better suited for watch documentaries on the couch Olivia." "That's not fair," she protested. "There's no different versions of me. Just different priorities at different times in my life." I leaned back in my chair. "And your current priority is dating my best friend." "My current priority is being happy," she said firmly. "And Marcus makes me happy. Just like someday, someone will make you happy in all the ways I couldn't." There was a genuineness to her words that deflated some of my anger. Olivia wasn't a cruel person. She had never been. Our divorce had been painful but respectful. And if I was being completely honest with myself, we hadn't made each other happy in a long time before it ended. "I wish you'd told me directly instead of letting me find out via Instagram," I finally said. "We were going to," she replied. Marcus wanted to tell you in person. But then I posted that picture without thinking. I'm sorry about that. I nodded, accepting her apology because it was easier than holding on to the anger. So what happens now? We all pretend this isn't the most awkward situation ever? Now, she said carefully, we try to find a new normal. Because like it or not, Marcus values your friendship. And despite everything, I still care about you, Nate. I want you to be okay. I am okay, I said automatically. I'm great. Living the single life. Me and Winston against the world. She smiled slightly. How is Winston? Still eating socks? It's his passion, I replied. Recently he's developed a taste for expensive running socks. He's becoming a sock gourmet. We both laughed, and for a moment it felt like old times, before the divorce, before Marcus, when we were just Nate and Olivia, two people who could make each other laugh. I should go, I said, finishing my coffee. I've got a thing. I didn't have a thing. I had an empty apartment and a sock-eating dog waiting for me. But I had reached my emotional capacity for the day. Olivia nodded, understanding as always. Thanks for meeting me. It means a lot. As I walked out of the coffee shop, I realized I felt slightly better. Not great, not even good, but slightly less like my world was imploding. Progress, I supposed. The following Saturday, my doorbell rang at 10 a.m. I opened it to find my sister, Zoe, standing there with a determined expression and 2 cups of coffee. Intervention time, she announced, pushing past me into my apartment. You've been ignoring my calls. I've been busy, I protested, accepting the coffee she thrust at me. Zoe looked pointedly around my apartment, taking in the pile of takeout containers and the blanket nest I'd created on my couch. Winston trotted over to greet her, his tail wagging so hard his entire body shook. At least someone's happy to see me, she said, bending down to pet him. You look terrible. Thank you. I've been working on this man in crisis aesthetic. The key is to sleep in your clothes and avoid combs. Zoe rolled her eyes and started picking up the takeout containers. Mom told me about Marcus and Olivia. That's rough, bro. Mom knows? I groaned. How? Facebook. Olivia's mom posted something about being so happy her daughter found love again. Traitor, I muttered, unsure if I meant Olivia's mom or my own for her social media sleuthing. So what's your plan? Zoe asked, sitting on my newly cleared couch. Wallow forever? Become the villain in their love story? Move to Montana and become a sheep farmer? I was thinking Alaska, actually. Bear wrestling seems cathartic. She ignored my sarcasm. You need to rejoin the world, Nate. Go on a date. Remember that there are other women besides your ex-wife. I know there are other women, I said defensively. I'm not pining for Olivia. Zoe gave me a skeptical look. Then what are you doing? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're letting this situation define you. I sank onto the couch beside her. It's not about Olivia. Not really. It's about Marcus. He was my best friend, and he broke the code. The code, she repeated. You mean that imaginary set of rules guys think exists? It does exist. You don't date your friend's ex. It's basic friendship etiquette. Zoe sipped her coffee thoughtfully. Maybe. But people don't choose who they fall in love with. And from what Mom said, they seem pretty serious. I groaned. Don't tell me you're on their side. I'm on your side, dummy. Which is why I'm here telling you to stop hiding in your apartment feeling sorry for yourself. She nudged me with her elbow. Come out with me tonight. My friend Jessica is going to be there, you know, the pediatric surgeon I've been trying to set you up with for months. I don't need to be set up, I protested. You absolutely do. You need to remember that life goes on. She stood up and headed to my bedroom. Now, let's find you something to wear that doesn't scream I've given up on personal hygiene. As she rummaged through my closet, I found myself smiling slightly. Zoe had always been like this, bulldozing through my defenses with equal parts tough love and genuine care. It was annoying. It was also exactly what I needed. Fine, I called after her. One night out. But if this Jessica asks about my hobbies, I'm telling her the truth, that I spend my evenings teaching my dog to play chess and plotting mild inconveniences for my ex-best friend. Zoe reappeared with a blue button-down shirt and dark jeans. Perfect. You can mention the chess thing. Quirky pet behavior is an excellent date topic. Leave out the revenge plotting until at least the third date. Jessica turned out to be both attractive and interesting, with a dry wit that matched my own and fascinating stories about tiny humans whose lives she'd saved. Under normal circumstances, I would have been thrilled to meet someone like her. But as the evening progressed, I found my mind wandering. Not to Olivia, surprisingly, but to Marcus. To the 15 years of friendship we'd shared. To the traditions we'd built, our annual camping trip to Olympic National Park, our fantasy football league that had started as just the two of us and grown to include 12 guys, our standing Thursday night online gaming sessions. I excused myself to the bathroom and pulled out my phone. Without overthinking it, I texted Marcus, "Remember that time in college when you ate an entire family-sized lasagna on a dare and then threw up in the dean's prized rosebushes?" His response came almost immediately. "I still can't smell ricotta without getting flashbacks. You told everyone I had food poisoning and helped me clean up before anyone found out." I smiled despite myself. "You owe me for that one." "I owe you for a lot of things," he replied. I stared at those words, feeling a complex mix of emotions. Anger, still. Hurt, definitely. But also the weight of 15 years of brotherhood that wasn't easily discarded. "This doesn't mean I forgive you," I texted. "But maybe we can talk again soon. Name the time and place." "I'll be there." I put my phone away and rejoined the group, finding it easier to be present for the rest of the evening. I even got Jessica's number at the end of the night, though I wasn't sure if I would use it. One step at a time. The next few weeks brought a gradual shift in my perspective. I met Marcus for beers again, this time with less hostility and more genuine conversation. I learned more about how his relationship with Olivia had developed, not from a place of betrayal but from shared grief over hurting me and gradual discovery of their compatibility. It still stung, but less sharply than before. I even agreed to meet them both for dinner, a trial run of what our new dynamic might look like. It was awkward, certainly. There were moments when Olivia and Marcus exchanged looks of such easy intimacy that I had to look away. But there were also moments of laughter, of shared history, of the possibility that we might someday reach a new normal. "You seem different," Marcus observed as we waited for Olivia to return from the bathroom. "Different how?" I asked. "More at peace, maybe. Less like you want to stab me with your fork." I shrugged. "I've been thinking a lot about choice. About how we don't always get to choose what happens to us, but we do get to choose how we respond." Marcus looked surprised. "That's surprisingly philosophical." "I've had a lot of time to think between my sock retrieval duties with Winston and my thriving Netflix documentary addiction." He laughed, then grew serious. "For what it's worth, I never wanted to hurt you. Neither did Olivia. Sometimes life just happens." "Life doesn't just happen," I replied. "People make choices. You and Olivia made yours. Now I'm making mine." "And what choice is that?" I considered the question as Olivia returned to the table. "I choose not to let this define me," I said finally. "I choose to find a way forward that doesn't involve burning every bridge behind me." It wasn't forgiveness, not fully. But it was a start. 2 months after the infamous Super Bowl nacho cheese incident, I found myself in an unexpected position, sitting in a coffee shop across from Jessica, the pediatric surgeon, on what was officially our third date. "So then," the 4-year-old says, completely serious, "Doctor, I think my teddy bear needs surgery too." "He has a case of the Saturday morning cartoons," Jessica was saying, her eyes crinkling at the corners when she smiled. I laughed, genuinely entertained by her story and by her. We'd been taking things slow, coffee, a movie, and now brunch, and I found myself increasingly drawn to her straightforward manner and passionate dedication to her work. "Your turn," she said. "Tell me something about your week that doesn't involve coding or Winston's sock adventures." I thought for a moment. "I had dinner with my ex-wife and former best friend yesterday." Jessica's eyebrows shot up. "The ones who?" "Yep. Those ones." "And how was that?" I considered the question. "Less awful than I expected. Still weird, but manageable weird, not apocalyptic weird." "That's progress," she noted. "Last time we talked, you were still in the considering changing your name and moving to Alaska phase." "I've downgraded to occasionally Google real estate in remote parts of Washington state," I admitted. Jessica smiled, then reached across the table to touch my hand lightly. "For what it's worth, I'm glad you didn't flee to Alaska. My dating options would have been significantly less entertaining." The casual touch, the warmth in her eyes, they sparked something in me that I hadn't felt in a long time. Not since before things had started going wrong with Olivia. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was possibility. And right now, possibility felt like enough. "Can I tell you something potentially weird?" I asked. "All the best conversations start that way," she replied. "I think finding out about Marcus and Olivia might have been the best thing that could have happened to me." The words surprised me as I said them, but I realized they were true. It forced me to stop dwelling in this limbo where I was technically moving on from my divorce but still emotionally stuck. Jessica nodded thoughtfully. "Emotional shock therapy." "Exactly. It was like being dumped into ice water. Unpleasant, but very effective at changing your state of mind." "And your state of mind now is?" I looked at her, really looked at her, taking in the intelligence in her eyes, the subtle freckles across her nose, the way she listened with her whole self. "Open," I said finally. "For the first time in a long time, I feel open to what comes next." A week later, Marcus called with news. He and Olivia were engaged. "That was fast," I said, surprised at how steady my voice remained. "When you know," he replied, sounding both happy and nervous. "I wanted to tell you myself before it hits social media. And I wanted to ask you something. If the answer is will you be my best man, you might be getting a little ahead of yourself," I warned. He laughed. "No, though I'd be lying if I said I hadn't thought about it. Actually, we wanted to invite you to our engagement party next month. Small gathering, just close friends and family. You can bring someone if you want," he added. The old me would have declined immediately, making an excuse about prior commitments or perhaps a sudden case of engagement party-specific food poisoning. But the new me, the one choosing his response rather than being driven by hurt, considered it. "I'll be there," I said finally. "And I might bring someone." "Jessica?" he asked, and I could hear the hopeful smile in his voice. "Maybe. We'll see where things stand." After we hung up, I sat on my couch, Winston's head heavy on my lap, and reflected on how much had changed in just a few months. The pain hadn't disappeared entirely, I doubted it ever would, but it had transformed into something manageable, something that no longer threatened to define my every moment. I texted Jessica, hypothetical question, "Would you be interested in attending an extremely awkward engagement party with me next month?" Her reply came minutes later, "Depends." On a scale from slightly uncomfortable Thanksgiving dinner to accidentally walked into the wrong restroom, how awkward are we talking? I smiled at my phone. Somewhere between ran into your high school bully at your college reunion and accidentally sent a text about someone to that someone. "Intriguing," she responded. "I'm in. I'll wear my emotional hazmat suit." As I set my phone down, I realized I was actually looking forward to the party. Not because I was fully healed or because I thought it would be easy, but because I was curious about this new version of myself, the one who could face difficult situations without breaking, who could find humor in pain, who could choose his own path forward even when that path wasn't the one he'd planned. Winston looked up at me with soulful eyes, as if sensing my thoughts. "Don't worry, buddy, I told him, scratching behind his ears. We're going to be just fine. And for the first time in months, I truly believed it. The engagement party was held at an upscale restaurant with a rooftop deck overlooking Elliott Bay. It was a beautiful Seattle evening, one of those rare summer nights when the sky remained clear and the temperature perfect. As Jessica and I stepped off the elevator onto the roof, I felt a momentary tightness in my chest. "You okay?" Jessica asked, her hand warm in mine. "Yeah," I said, taking a deep breath. "Just a surreal moment." She squeezed my hand. "We can leave any time you want. Just say the word and I'll fake a medical emergency. I'm very convincing, it's the doctor advantage." I smiled gratefully. "Let's see how it goes. But keep that option in the back pocket." We made our way through the crowd, accepting champagne from a passing server. I spotted familiar faces, mutual friends from my marriage to Olivia, Marcus's parents who had always treated me like a second son, Olivia's sister who gave me a surprisingly warm hug. And then there they were, Marcus and Olivia, standing near the edge of the deck, framed by the sunset over the Olympics. They looked happy in a way that was almost tangible, as if their joy was a physical presence between them. Marcus saw me first, his face breaking into a relieved smile. He nudged Olivia, who turned and spotted us. They made their way over together. "You came," Olivia said, giving me a quick hug that felt both familiar and foreign. "I said I would," I replied. I turned to Jessica. "This is Jessica. Jessica, this is Marcus and Olivia." "The famous Marcus and Olivia," Jessica said with a smile that managed to be both warm and slightly mischievous. "I've heard so much about you both." "All bad, I'm sure," Marcus joked, shaking her hand. "Actually," Jessica replied, "Nate's been remarkably diplomatic. Though he did mention something about you eating an entire lasagna once." Marcus groaned while Olivia laughed. "That story will follow me to my grave." The conversation flowed more easily than I had expected, the four of us finding a rhythm that, while not entirely comfortable, wasn't unbearably awkward either. When Marcus pulled me aside later to show me the custom Seattle Seahawks cufflinks Olivia had given him as an engagement gift, I found myself genuinely appreciating her thoughtfulness. She had always been good at gifts. "So," Marcus said when we were alone, "Jessica seems great." "She is," I agreed. "Way out of my league." "Not true. But she does seem to make you happy." I nodded. "She does. It's different than what I had with Olivia, but, good different." Marcus studied me for a moment. "I've been worried about you. About us. About whether we'd ever find our way back to something resembling friendship." "We're working on it," I said honestly. "It's not the same, and it probably never will be. But it's something." He nodded, accepting this reality. "I miss our gaming sessions. Thursday nights aren't the same without you trash-talking my strategic decisions." "Your strategic decisions deserve to be trash-talked," I replied automatically, falling into our old pattern of banter. Marcus laughed, then grew serious. "I know I've said it before, but I'm sorry for how everything happened. Not for loving Olivia, I can't be sorry for that, but for hurting you in the process." I took a sip of my champagne, considering his words. 6 months ago, I would have rejected his apology outright. 3 months ago, I would have accepted it grudgingly. But now, standing on this rooftop watching him and Olivia build a future together, I found I could accept it genuinely. "I know," I said. "And I'm getting to a place where that's okay." Later, as Jessica and I danced under the stars to a slow song, her head resting comfortably against my shoulder, I caught sight of Marcus and Olivia across the deck. They were standing at the railing, his arm around her waist, both looking out at the city lights. The scene didn't trigger pain as it once would have. Instead, I felt a strange sense of closure. "You're smiling," Jessica observed, looking up at me. "Am I?" A real smile, not the forced one you had when we first arrived." I pulled her closer. "I just realized something. I think I'm actually happy for them." "That's a big step," she said. It is. And I'm also happy for me. I twirled her gently. I'm dancing with a beautiful surgeon who somehow finds my dog stories entertaining and doesn't mind that I sometimes talk about coding problems in my sleep. Jessica laughed. The sleep coding is actually quite entertaining. Last time you muttered something about nested loops for a solid 10 minutes. As the song ended, I led her to a quiet corner of the deck with a view of the Space Needle illuminated against the night sky. Thank you for coming with me tonight, I said. I know it was asking a lot. It wasn't, she replied. Besides, I like seeing this side of you, the one who can face difficult situations with grace. Grace might be overstating it. I spilled champagne on myself twice. Graceful clumsiness, then, she amended with a smile. I looked back over at Marcus and Olivia, now surrounded by friends, accepting congratulations and well wishes. There was a time when I thought their happiness had come at the expense of my own. But standing here with Jessica, I understood that wasn't true. Happiness wasn't a finite resource. There was enough for all of us, just in different forms than I had expected. Want to get out of here? I asked Jessica. We could grab dinner at that Thai place you mentioned. The one with the killer pad Thai, she asked. I nodded, realizing with surprise that the mention of pad Thai no longer turned my stomach. Exactly that one. As we said our goodbyes, Olivia hugged me tightly and whispered, I'm glad you're happy, Nate. You deserve it. For the first time in our post-divorce relationship, I felt the truth of her words without any undercurrent of resentment or pain. You too, Liv. Marcus gave me one of those half-handshake, half-hug gestures that men do when they're feeling emotional but trying not to show it. Thursday night gaming session next week, he asked, a hopeful note in his voice. I'll think about it, I replied, but we both knew I'd probably be there. As Jessica and I walked toward the elevator, I glanced back one last time. Marcus had his arm around Olivia, both of them surrounded by well-wishers, both of them glowing with happiness. The sight no longer felt like a knife to my chest. Instead, it felt like the closing of one chapter and the opening of another. They look good together, Jessica observed as we stepped into the elevator. They do, I agreed, surprising myself with how much I meant it. On the drive to the Thai restaurant, Jessica's hand rested comfortably on mine as I navigated through downtown Seattle. So, she said casually, was it as awful as you feared? I thought about it for a moment. Not even close. It was actually healing, in a weird way. Emotional closure is powerful medicine, she said, the doctor in her showing. Sometimes you need to see the thing you feared most to realize it doesn't have the power over you that you thought it did. The Thai restaurant was busy but not crowded. We settled into a corner table with a small candle flickering between us. When the server came, I ordered pad Thai without hesitation. Significant choice, Jessica noted after the server left. You caught that, huh? I pay attention. She smiled, reaching for my hand across the table. It's kind of my thing. As we ate, our conversation drifted away from Marcus and Olivia, away from the past, and toward more immediate matters, her upcoming research project, my new app development, our plans for the weekend. It felt normal. Comfortable. Right. Later that night, as we stood outside her apartment door, Jessica looked up at me with those intelligent eyes that had become so familiar over the past months. You know, when Zoe first tried to set us up, I was skeptical, she admitted. She told me you were going through a rough time, and I wasn't sure I wanted to be someone's rebound. A reasonable concern, I said. What changed your mind? You did. She reached up to straighten my collar, a gesture so intimate it made my breath catch. You never pretended to be anything other than what you were, a guy healing from a complicated situation. You were honest about your mess. I found that refreshing. I smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. For what it's worth, I'm glad Zoe is such a persistent matchmaker. Me too, she whispered, rising on her tiptoes to kiss me. The 6 months that followed were a gradual settling into new patterns. Marcus and I cautiously rebuilt a friendship that, while different from before, had its own value. We resumed our Thursday gaming sessions, though occasionally Olivia would join now, proving to be surprisingly adept at destroying both of us in strategy games. Jessica and Winston developed a deep bond, especially after she saved him from a serious sock-eating incident that required emergency surgery. "This is why I specialized in humans," she joked afterward. "Their dietary choices make more sense." My family embraced her with an enthusiasm that was both heartwarming and slightly embarrassing, especially when my mother started casually mentioning family heirloom rings during our visits. By the time Marcus and Olivia's wedding rolled around in spring, I found myself in the unexpected position of being a groomsman, not the best man, which felt right, standing beside my former best friend as he married my ex-wife. "Nervous?" I asked him as we adjusted our ties in the church side room. "Terrified," he admitted. "But the good kind of terrified. Like when we went bungee jumping in New Zealand." "Just try not to throw up this time," I advised. "Vomiting on the bride is generally frowned upon." He laughed, then grew serious. "Thank you, Nate. For being here. For everything." "Wouldn't miss it," I said, and meant it. The ceremony was beautiful, simple, and uniquely them. As they exchanged vows, I stood watching with a sense of peace I couldn't have imagined a year ago. Jessica sat in the audience, catching my eye occasionally with a warm smile that made my heart skip. At the reception, after the toasts and the cake cutting, I found a quiet moment with Olivia on the terrace of the venue. "Happy?" I asked her. "Very," she replied. Then, with a sly smile, "You?" I glanced back inside where Jessica was deep in conversation with Zoe, both of them laughing about something. "Getting there," I said. "Good." She touched my arm gently. "You know, I've been thinking a lot about fate lately." "That doesn't sound like the practical Olivia I know." She shrugged. "Marriage makes you philosophical. But seriously, what if everything happened exactly as it was supposed to? What if we needed to find our way to other people to become the versions of ourselves we were meant to be?" "That's a very generous interpretation of events," I replied. "Maybe. Or maybe it's just the truth." When Jessica and I danced later that evening, I held her close, breathing in the scent of her perfume, feeling the warmth of her body against mine. "Penny for your thoughts," she murmured. "I was just thinking that a year ago, I was hosting a Super Bowl party and getting covered in nacho cheese when I found out my best friend was dating my ex-wife," I said. "If you had told me then that I'd be at their wedding, feeling genuinely happy for them and dancing with an amazing woman I'm falling in love with, I would have thought you were crazy." Jessica pulled back slightly to look at me, her eyes wide. "Falling in love with?" I realized what I'd said and felt a moment of panic, followed by certainty. "Yes. Actually, no. Not falling. I am in love with you, Jessica." Her face softened into a smile. "Well, that's convenient, because I'm in love with you too, Nate Wilson." 2 years to the day after the infamous nacho cheese incident, I found myself again hosting a Super Bowl party in my apartment. But this time, things were different. For one, the apartment was different. Jessica and I had bought a place together in Queen Anne, with a balcony that Winston loved to sunbathe on and enough space for her medical journals and my coding books to coexist peacefully. For another, the guest list had expanded. Marcus and Olivia were there, she now visibly pregnant with their first child. My sister Zoe had brought her new boyfriend. Several of Jessica's hospital colleagues mingled with my tech friends, creating an eclectic but harmonious group. And most importantly, the ring box in my pocket made my heart race every time I thought about it. As halftime approached, I found myself in the kitchen with Marcus, both of us on beer duty. "So, tonight's the night?" he asked quietly, glancing to make sure Jessica wasn't nearby. I nodded, nervously checking my pocket for the 100th time. "If I don't chicken out." "You won't," he assured me. "And she'll say yes." "How can you be so sure?" He smiled. "Because I've seen the way she looks at you when you're not watching. It's the same way Olivia looks at me." An hour later, as the game wound down and our guests focused on the final plays, I lured Jessica out to the balcony with the promise of dessert. I don't see any dessert, she said, looking around the empty balcony. I lied about the dessert, I admitted. But I do have something for you. As the cheers from inside signaled the game's final touchdown, I got down on one knee, pulled out the box, and opened it to reveal the ring I'd spent months searching for, a sapphire surrounded by small diamonds, unique and brilliant, just like her. Jessica Clark, I said, my voice steadier than I'd expected. When I met you, I was a mess, a cheese-covered, heartbroken mess. You saw past all that to the person I could be, the person I wanted to be. You helped me find joy again, not just in spite of my past but because of how it shaped me. I love you more than I thought possible. Will you marry me? Her eyes filled with tears as she nodded emphatically. Yes, she managed. Absolutely yes. As I slipped the ring onto her finger and stood to kiss her, applause erupted behind us. We turned to find our entire party had spilled onto the balcony, Winston pushing his way to the front of the crowd. Sorry, Zoe called, not looking sorry at all. Marcus told us what was happening, and we couldn't miss it. Jessica laughed, wiping away happy tears. I wouldn't have it any other way. Later, as our friends celebrated around us, Olivia caught my eye from across the room and raised her glass in a silent toast. I returned the gesture, feeling a profound sense of gratitude for the twisting, unexpected path that had led us all here. Life doesn't always go according to plan. Sometimes your best friend falls in love with your ex-wife. Sometimes you find yourself covered in nacho cheese at the exact moment your world turns upside down. And sometimes, those seemingly disastrous moments lead you exactly where you're meant to be. As Jessica leaned against me, her new ring catching the light, Winston at our feet and our friends surrounding us, I realized that Olivia had been right at their wedding. Perhaps everything had happened exactly as it was supposed to. Not because fate had dictated it, but because we had all chosen, again and again, to move forward with grace and openness rather than bitterness, to find new ways to love and be loved, to build something meaningful from the ruins of what was lost. And in the end, that choice had made all the difference. The end. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more incredible content.